for joining us. Good afternoon. We're really excited to be here with you today, talking about the challenges in this omni-channel era for pricing. I'm Valerie Howard. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for the Pros Pricing Portfolio. Really excited to be here with you today. I was a former Pros user myself, so fell in love with the science over 10 years ago, and I'm lucky enough to be here at Pros today, marketing our pricing solutions. I'm here with Charles Sweeney, our Director of Strategic Consulting. He's got great experience in the pricing space, over 18 years of experience there, and so we've got a lot of familiarity with the challenges that you're facing when it comes to delivering on an omni-channel experience and what that means for price management. Buyers are seeking channel fluidity. I'm sure you heard it in John Bruno's session in the keynote this morning and the session just prior to this. Buyers are expecting you to meet them wherever they are, whenever they want you to meet them, whenever they need to purchase your goods. And what we mean by that is that buyers are doing more and more on their own. They're self-educating on the solutions to those problems. And according to CEB research, in 2011, more than half of the buying cycle was executed by the buyer without the needs of a sales rep. They got through 57% of the buying cycle before they called up a sales rep to help them evaluate the options to solve their problems. And furthermore, in 2017, it was almost 2/3 of the way through the buying cycle before a buyer would call up a sales rep to help them better understand the possible solutions to their problems. In a lot of cases, that meant they'd already narrowed their selection set down to 3, which is really challenging for a sales rep to start helping them to better understand their unique value proposition as a vendor. Even more threatening to vendors is that in 2020, it's anticipated that they'll be 80% through the buying cycle before they start engaging with sales reps. And what that means is that they've likely already evaluated who they want to purchase from, and they may be just working with the sales rep to work through the contract negotiation details. There's enough information in the marketplace today to help them narrow their selection via perhaps online channels, references, and they can narrow their selection down to one vendor just from that information that's out there for them alone. And e-commerce is a huge part of that transition to buyers being ready to buy, being ready to make their way 80% through that buying cycle. This research here shows that it shows a perspective on how much revenue vendors are seeing come through their e-commerce channel. We surveyed 739 sales, pricing, and finance leaders. And what's broken down here is the percentage of revenue coming through e-commerce by percentiles of 10%. So at the top there, you can see very few are seeing 0% all the way down to where they're seeing exclusively 100% of their revenue come through e-commerce channels. So you can see right now, today, is represented by the blue bars here. And you see that vendors are on the highest percentage is about 20 to 30% of their revenue coming through e-commerce. But today, 22% of these vendors are actually seeing more than half of their revenue come through e-commerce. That's a pretty incredible amount of e-commerce revenue. But what's threatening is that by 2023, it's expected that 62% of these businesses will achieve more than half of their revenue through their e-commerce channel. But omni-channel is important because that revenue is not going to come exclusively online. If you can see it here, we've got consumer products from books to cars, and we've got a representation of buyers' preferences in the channels that they choose. The most popular item to buy online are books, and probably from the Amazon effect, they made that super easy to purchase books, and the book's quality is pretty consistent. So as many as 17% of buyers are exclusively purchasing books online, but then we've got our cars, which are, despite the horrible experiences with car salesmen, often they're being purchased in stores more frequently than online. But we see where they're exclusively purchasing online, that's still just a sliver at the top there. Those are those green bars. The majority of consumers are purchasing through multiple channels. They're purchasing online as well as in-store. So when it comes to book buying, I know the next book I'm going to buy is going to be Good to Great. Sadly, I haven't read it yet. But you know what's great is that I have so many choices in the way that I can consume this book. And it's most likely that I'm going to buy this book on Audible. I've got, I would say, a great commute. I live here in Clear Lake, Houston. It's a great place to live. I highly recommend, coming to be my neighbor. But then I commute here to Midtown, and it takes about an hour. So it's a great hour-long drive to consume a great book like Good to Great. But if I had an upcoming vacation, I would definitely consider buying that book on my Kindle. Wherever I am in the world with 3G wireless, I can purchase a book. I have access to this full range, this full library of whatever Amazon has to offer through their Kindle books. And it's a nice, easy way to consume books wherever I am in the world. But then, because I always think about my coworkers, if I wanted to go purchase a hard copy of this book, my selection would probably be the Barnes & Noble store, because that's my favorite place to buy gifts. But what's important about this when we're talking about omni-channel price management is that the prices across these channels are incredibly different. They range as much as 200%. That price for that Audible book, they know how painful my commute can be at times, and they'll charge me $34 to get that book on audio. So there's a lot that drives the variation in willingness to pay across channels, and Charles is going to walk us through just a simple example of a two-channel problem.
Hey, thanks, Val. Yeah, so when we think of omni-channel, and you heard John in the last session. How many of you were in the last session with John? Yeah, so a lot of you heard John give a definition for omni-channel, and it sounded like channel plus digital. And when you think of omni-channel in terms of pricing and what you want to do, there's a different context for that. It's omni-channel with pricing means that there's some transparency now that you have to deal with. And so what does that mean? Thinking about what that means, I was thinking back to some things, personal examples for me and things that I've come across. And I begin my journey with my desire to stay fit. This is, over the years, over 10 plus years, I've been trying all sorts of different things to stay fit. Some very, very hard. I didn't do those as much. Some very, very easy. Weren't quite delivering the results that my wife expected. And so, over the last year, though, I found that I really enjoy cycling. Cycling is, the helmet, the super tight, loud clothes, the funky shoes. But I've really enjoyed it. And part of it is because there's a sense of achievement, right? You're getting somewhere fast, but it also is delivering some of the results that I want. And so to kick off this example is, at last fall, a group of my friends got together and we said, in the springtime, we're going to target a race. We're going to target a ride together. It's a long one. We're going to have to stay in shape over the winter. And for me, I live in Kansas City. It's nasty weather. And although I love cycling, I am a fair weather biker. I will not go out in the snow or the rain, or even when it's really windy, I'll kind of avoid going outside. And so I had to come up with a solution. And as a pricer, I get kind of excited about seeing, omni-channel in the real world. And this is a solution. Or this is what happened. For me as a buyer, I have absolute transparency and visibility into the price points of two different ways that I can buy an experience. And this experience happens to be a cycle studio. I go during the winter, stay off the roads, can get into class. I can go and buy these cycle studio classes by showing up, hoping that there's a bike available, and that I get in, enjoy the class, get my workout. Or, if any of you are familiar with this MindBody app, I can go and pre-purchase a set of sessions, go in and sign up for that session, and then have my bike reserved so that when I show up, I don't have to have any kind of a transaction, and I get the experience that I expect and expect to be delivered. Now I'm going to ask you guys as pricers, this is an omni-channel world. You have visibility into the price points of both, but this creates a pricing challenge for us. And the pricing challenge is, the base of it is I have to understand the value that's being delivered so that I can price appropriately and essentially come up with my price strategy. So we think of what I'd want to consider in this digital channel, right? There's pros and cons to the proprietor, there's pros and cons to me as a user, and some of them look like it's very convenient. It's convenient to the proprietor, it's convenient to me, it's 24/7, meaning I can spend my money on a cycle studio class anytime, day or night. Convenient for the proprietor because they can accept my money now anytime, 24/7. So that's a good thing on both sides. There's some other pros and cons, but I think some of the big ones are, one, as a user, I can absolutely reserve my seat. So no longer is it first come, first serve. If the cycles are used, I'm out of luck. If I book online, I get a bike that's reserved. So that's a value to me as a user. It's also a little bit of a value to the proprietor because they can schedule their class and know the class size, maybe invest in more bikes. But the other thing that's important for you to know is that to use this app as a proprietor, it's a 10% sales commission. So 10% off the top goes to pay the channel partner, in this case, this MindBody app. So this is an avenue. And there's some things here that you need to consider as a pricer to what is the right price. And then if I go into my in-person, so my traditional route to market or my traditional channel, I'm dealing with cash only. As a proprietor, I have to make change. I have to staff the front desk. I also have to staff the front desk and get back into class and run the class. So there's some overhead that has to happen there. But for me as a user, this could be an inconsistent experience. So as a user, if the class is full and it's first come, first serve, and the cycles are all taken, I'm out of luck. So very bad experience in that case. But for the proprietor, that might be okay, right? No issues there. So there is some of that availability limits. But for the proprietor also, there's no commissions that they have to pay. Right? So there's no 10% that has to go off the top to pay to service this route to market. And so as you can see, there's pros and cons to both. And so very simple pricing problem, right? I mean, you guys are all pricers. I'm a pricing geek. This type of stuff excites me. Very easy, right? The price should be the same through both channels, right? Everybody who thinks that, raise their hand. Or the price should be different because different values being delivered through each channel. Raise your hand if you think that. Right? And so that, I guess there's debate, right? I mean, this is as simple of a omni-channel example as you can get with this transparency and what is the real price. And without that understanding of value, it becomes really hard. So I play video games with my son. And during the game, right, it's some kind of campaign and you're killing all the minions and you finally get to the boss, which is the big challenge. And you think of this problem, and even here in the room, we had disagreement on what the right price strategy is. Well, the boss is right around the corner. And the boss is this idea of, now I have information because of this online booking portal into the availability of the cycles in my class. And I can start matching demand and supply based on the value of that person's time that wants to be in that class. So if I see a class filling up fast, I can start increasing the price. If I see an area of the day that's slow, I can start lowering that price to attract more customers and to extract more value. That's just right around the corner, right? And again, very simple example. Is it worth getting this right? And of course, the answer is yes. I mean, there's lots of debate on what is the right pricing strategy in this type of situation. And within your businesses, as you go to market in your different channels, there could be debate over different channels. But what is not at debate is this idea that channels are coming and adding value to the companies. They're not going away. Your channel strategy isn't going to be shrinking. It's only going to be expanding. And so making the investment to get it right and to get that foundation and infrastructure in place so that you can execute these channel pricing strategies is absolutely going to be mandatory.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The more channels that you offer to your customers, the more loyal they will be to your business. I'll share with you that my daily routine is that I make my own coffee, but somehow last year I spent $700 at Starbucks throughout 2017. And the reason that I did that was because they made it so easy for me to consume Starbucks. I know that whenever, if I'm too late to make my coffee, I can order my favorite order from Starbucks as I leave the door, and it'll be ready from me as soon as I get to the local Starbucks. It takes just 3 clicks, and that's how they got $700 out of my pocket in 2017. But to Charles's point, it's not always consistently the same price. When I'm on vacation and I'm buying Starbucks in Disney World, I'm probably paying $8 for a coffee. But I'm still loyal to that brand because I know it's a consistent product, and I know what I'm going to get through all those varied channels. And I'm willing to spend a little bit more because I really appreciate the brand consistency that I get from Starbucks there. And you can find, and what Forrester has found is that the more channels that you offer to your customers, the more money that they'll spend with you. And you can see that's actually also a bit of a competitive defense as well. There's less ability for your competitors to enter that space where perhaps you haven't engaged a channel partner to reach your customers. Additionally, when you're enabling your customers for that self-serve purchase, that 3-click purchase that I have for Starbucks, they're going to spend more with you, just like I did in 2017. But unfortunately, while this digital era, mobile pricing sounds really fun and exciting, and let's turn it on right away, right? Let's add more and more channels. Well, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the structure that we've built for managing prices across those channels isn't necessarily well set up to harmonize pricing in the omni-channel era. What we've seen in a lot of customers is that channels are set up for pricing in a channel-by-channel silo where there's disconnects in processes and disconnects in information. In some cases, perhaps, you're publishing pricing or enabling your distributor with pricing that you update only on an annual basis, but then you might have reseller pricing where you're pricing for them as needed as they come in for orders. That's more dynamic than what you've given to that distributor. But then you've got those e-commerce, perhaps Amazon prices that are being updated continuously. And you can see how quickly the risk of channel conflict can become an issue for you when you've got contract prices that are somewhat static in addition to more dynamic pricing conditions. So what we've also seen is that buyers in this type of environment have more transparency or can have more visibility into the pricing than what the manufacturer might have as well. It's difficult to see what's truly being executed across all these channels when we have so many varied processes and processes for delivering on those prices. And it sets up a situation for potential economic loss that could actually be another company's economic gain.
So Val has said economic loss. She said disconnect. She said transparency. These words can be issues, especially knowing that the market is efficient. And a good way to illustrate this is a story. It's about a general manager. He's a general manager of an electrical consultant company in Colorado. And it's a great little business, serves enterprises in their industrial solutions around all of their electrician needs. So one of the things that he did, he's a smart guy, he's a pricer at heart, he must be a smart guy, but he's the general manager, right? And so he is knowing that there's a better, he's constantly beating up his distributor. So he knows that he can get better prices if he goes in and argues, and he's been constantly doing this over years. Been able to get better pricing, continues to kind of move the needle on the pricing that he's been able to get, but he's also testing that distributor every time he talks to them. So that one day, what happens is his distributor sales rep says to his boss, listen, I can't handle this guy right now, right? It's a fight every time I'm in here. Can you please come in here and let's talk about a strategy of how we're going to deal with this little general manager that's got a growing business. He's a good customer, but he's a real pain in the butt. So the boss of this sales guy says, absolutely, I got an idea. Let's just be fair with him. Let's open up our books a little bit. Let's show him how much we're making and why what he's getting is an absolutely fair price compared to other companies that look just like him. And those two on the sales team at the distributor said, oh, this is a great idea. Let's do it. He's got to be moved by us being fair with him. So general manager comes in. He talks through all of the pricing. They're very transparent. Here's the rebates I get. Here's the costs that I get. Here's the margin that I'm going to make from all of these things all the value that I add to you. And remember, right, I have a staff of engineers on site. I give training. I give you some credit, I do some inventory. So I add value, I earn this 25 points that I'm charging as a premium. And even if I didn't, you got the best price of anybody in my book of business. You should be happy. So this guy, he's like, yeah, you know what, I'm happy. The guy was fair with me. I feel good. I got as low a price as I could during that negotiation. But I said, this guy's a pricer. He's got a heart of a pricer. He goes home, and he's thinking, what in the world, right? What in the world am I really paying for through this distribution? What services am I getting out of this interaction? And he thought about it, and he's like, you know what? There's two things that really matter to me. One is there's an availability factor. So this distributor is taking on inventory, and he has it relatively close. So that's a value. He recognizes that's a value. And then the other thing was, for his particular situation, that this distributor was giving him some terms. So he was providing some financing, right? So two things, yet he was paying 25 points for these two things. And he did some research back on his end, and he had just bought a big warehouse and has warehousing capabilities. And he just completed a huge project where the bank financed him, and he had a really good relationship with his banker. And so he was thinking that he was now where he initially left, thinking, oh, this guy was really fair with me, thinking, what am I really getting out of this value? Now I have a little bit more transparency than everybody else in the marketplace. I know the price that this distributor is getting. What can I do with that? So he does the math, and he reaches out to his folks and says, okay, yeah, could I do a direct arrangement? Do I need this distributor? And he figured out he probably could. So he goes in during the next negotiation. It was particularly tough. And at the end of it, he just said, you know what, I'm going direct. I'm not going to use you anymore as a distributor. I can do these things that you're doing myself. So he goes direct, builds this relationship with the manufacturer. Manufacturer didn't give him the pricing that he was giving the distributor that he knew about, but he gave him something that was in between, right? Instead of 25 points, he's getting 12 points or whatever it was. So, but he was really happy, right? He was making a lot more money than he had before. But again, heart of a pricer. He knew there was money on the table. He knew there were other customers like him. He thought, you know what? If I work an arrangement here, if I become a distributor and distribute to myself and, maybe some of my friends, there's real opportunity here, right? There's a disconnect. There's arbitrage all over the place, and I have some transparency now, and I can make money here. So he goes back to the manufacturer and says, listen, I can grow the business. I have friends that are wondering how I'm getting such a good deal. Let me be a distributor. I'll distribute to myself, and I'll distribute to others, and it's a win-win because I'll grow your business. And they said, yeah, let's do this, right? I'm going to give you this good pricing. So he works this deal out, gets this great pricing, is able to distribute to his friends. Over time, he's now the biggest distributor in the West Coast. He started in the Rocky Mountains, right? He started in Colorado. Now he's the biggest distributor in the West Coast for this particular set of products, all because he had a little bit more transparency and that he acted on it. And so this idea of having that transparency, acting on it, it is real, right? Markets are efficient. And in this case, manufacturer, whether it was right or wrong for them, they were being acted upon, right? So the market was acting and filling that efficiency on their behalf. That's not always the place that we want to be as business owners. We want to be the ones that are directing the market and managing the market. And that is the only way to go forward. And so when you think of, is this channel problem, or is this conflict, or organization, or omni-channel, or transparency, is this new? This story is a real story and is from 20 years ago. And so you think of what's happening in today's market. This was transparency because he knew somebody, or he was able to get a discussion with the distributor to understand a cost basis. But now, with digitization and information and transparency everywhere, it's only going to escalate or accelerate the speed at change happens.
Absolutely. And as Charles just said right there, there was that, the markets are efficient. businesses are going to find a way to take advantage of this price transparency to their benefit. And digitalization is increasing the price pressure that businesses are experiencing. You can see from this graphic here, the top 3 drivers of price pressure are actually coming from these new digital channels. What we see here is increased price transparency is that third #1 factor in driving increased price pressure. It's also helping customers with their negotiation power. Procurement buyers now have more powerful systems, more data at their fingertips to navigate that negotiation with you as you're fighting back from a pricer's perspective. But then digitalization is adding one more factor to that potential price pressure threat, and that now digital companies can come into being and threaten you without the overhead of a sales organization, and they can go direct, serving their customers without the needs and the cost of a direct sales team through exclusively online channels. So you can see there's a lot of intensified price pressure as a result of this increased price transparency and threat of low price competitors coming into the market as well. And I think we're all aware of the Amazon effect. With this price transparency, there's also dynamic price changing happening at increased magnitudes. Right here, we're showing the pricing on Amazon for a box of 100 latex gloves. You know, a pretty common commodity that you might see sold at hospitals and sold on, or bought at hospitals, used often at hospitals, but sold on Amazon as well. And what we saw over the last year, this price actually moved from $6.59 up to $14.70. That's over a 123% difference over the course of 2017 to May of 2018. And what's incredible is that the last 4 price changes in the month of May were actually of at least 4% for a total of a 12% price change in the last month. And I'll say that I was a pricer once for a couple years, and I could not achieve a price increase like this over the course of probably 5 years. When we looked at our annual price increase negotiations, it was a struggle internally just to navigate a price increase of 3%, which we would probably get a price attainment of 1% on. And now you can see Amazon is really, changing that dynamic now. With Amazon's price strategy, new transparency in the market, with prices going as low as $6.59 up to $14.70 for a box of 100 gloves, you can see that introduces a new dynamic, a new potential challenge for you as you try to serve digital markets. And then when we surveyed those 739 sales, pricing, finance, and marketing leaders, what they said was most concerning for them about trying to navigate to e-commerce channels was maintaining competitive pricing and protecting price attainment. That was more challenging for them than relevant promotions and maintaining that product catalog. Price attainment and competitive pricing were the top concerns of those sales, pricing, and finance leaders. And that's with fair reason. As we look to it, in B2B, the opacity of pricing has really helped us to be able to attain better aggressive pricing, get more value for our products. With low price transparency, we could increase that price and not see too much effect with demand decreasing for us. But you can see with that Amazon effect, when we increase the price, we'll see an effect on demand, and when we lower that price, we can see increased demand. So you can use it to your advantage if you like in some cases, but it's good to be cognizant of this new transparency and how it's going to affect your price strategy and navigate that. And no market is safe. You may have heard about the EpiPen drama where they got a lot of bad press because that price had increased so much. But trials captured these prices via GoodRx just this month, and even after all of that press, there's still a price disparity of $150 to $305. But as a healthcare consumer, it's great to know that we have tools like GoodRx that are helping us to make better decisions. Sometimes I think it's awareness that there are tools like this that are protecting perhaps these channels for them to be able to support prices of $300 when Walgreens is serving $150, but we'll definitely see price transparency affect the healthcare consumer market. And more channels is definitely leading to more risk for channel conflict. So you can see, in that case with Walgreens, I would definitely make the choice to choose Walgreens for my prescription provider if I knew that I was getting 50% prices from them.
Thanks. And so more channels, more risk, more transparency, fair pricing. These are all, as a pricer, these are like dirty words, right? This is like this is a nightmare, but it's real and it's happening. And so what I did was I actually pulled my team, a lot of ex-pricers, and a lot of our customers, and said, tell me about the channel, the omni-channel experience and the channel conflict that maybe you have, and what does the discussion look like? And so this is what I got back from the collective group. Looks something like this. Now, Mariana is a new procurement manager at Jackson. Jackson is a manufacturer, but they have a lot of printing needs, and she's looking over the contracts that she's just gotten. She's convinced that she can save her employer money. She's going to do a good job because she's run a couple plays, and she thinks that she's got a way forward. And in her mind, she's like, wow, these rates for the printer are horrible. Our distributor has been holding out on us. The boss is going to be so happy that I can save him a lot of money. And she knows, because she's been in procurement, that there's a way to find which rep might service her. And so she reaches out to Tom. Tom's a sales guy for the manufacturer. And she doesn't know this, but he's sitting there wondering how in the world is he going to hit his quota this year. And so Mariana calls, and she says something like this. Hey, Tom, looking forward to a strategic partnership to help me grow my printer footprint. We've been working with Klein Distribution for the past, but their prices are way out of touch with the marketplace. If this is the best you can do for me, I'm going to have to go to another brand. I'm going to have to figure out another solution. But Tom, hearing this, he's super excited. Tom says something like, hey, Mariana, thanks for this opportunity. With a little bit of expansion, I can qualify you as a direct customer, get you rates that you want. Let me check with my team and see what I can do for you, but I'm convinced we have a solution for you. Tom's been around the block. He knows who to talk to. He's got to go get some special pricing here. And so enters Jeff as the pricing manager. And he goes to Jeff. He says, hey, Jeff, got this huge opportunity with Jackson. They're looking for a partnership, so lots of great long-term growth here. As long as we can get past this pricing issue, can you help me from this opportunity from hitting the street? This deal is strategic. I need you to sharpen your pencil for this one. Tom, he's been a pricer for a long time. He's heard this 100 times at least. He says something, and he knows how to work Tom. He says, wow, Tom, really impressive opportunity, man. For an enterprise commitment and a 3-year term, I can get you some good rates. We need the business. But the prices that I'm going to give you and the floor price I'm going to give you is the absolute best price we have in the marketplace and the best that you could offer. So he's pretty excited because he knows that Mariana has been getting ripped off from the distributor for a long time. So this is going to be a huge savings no matter what he brings back to her. But he can say it's the best pricing. He's pretty pumped. So he goes back to Mariana and he says, hey, Mariana, worked extremely hard on your behalf to get you the pricing that you deserve. With your commitment for a bit more volume, I can offer you the very best prices in the market for a 3-year term. Mariana's excited, happy. She says, Tom, that's great. Like I said, we've been looking to expand. The extra volume is not going to be an issue at all. And these prices look good. But more importantly, I trust your promise that you're going to be delivering me the best price over the next 3 years. So Mariana has just saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's super excited, right? It's super impressive. Tom also hit quota, and he's going to club. So he's super excited. This is all good. Good story, right? But it doesn't end. 4 months later, here's what happens. Mariana's at a conference, something like this, at a bar. Old colleague, friend Jim And she's excited to share her last win. She says, "Hey, Jim, great to see you. I've got to introduce you to Tom. By going direct, I got a fantastic price point. You may be interested." Tom says, "Wow, really? I just made the switch to going direct as well. But we found amazing rates through their online portal. They guaranteed me that it was the best prices I could find anywhere." So Mariana's like, "Oh, man. They guaranteed you, right? The best prices, right? Tom told me that I was going to have the best prices in the marketplace. What's going on? And you're telling me that it didn't even require a contract or commitment term?" And Jim says, "Yeah, correct." And so Mariana's a little bit upset because she's told the boss, right, "I got the best prices in the market. You can rest assured for 3 years at least that this is a winning deal." But she knows her boss does an audit every now and then just to make sure. And what's easier to audit than something that's online? And so she is fuming right now. And she can't wait to talk to Tom the next day. She says to Tom, "Tom, wanted to let you know that we're not renewing our contract with you. I was disappointed to hear that we're paying above your online rates. I would have been okay with just the better pricing you gave me. It was going to be a huge win. But when you promised me that I had the best prices, I trusted you. Did you knowingly lie to me?" So she's emotional. He's emotional now. And Tom goes back and he's like, "I would never lie to you. There's nothing worse than being called a liar, right? I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. Let me run this down for you. Those damn pricers, right?" So then Tom goes back to Jeff. And he says, "Hey, Jeff, Mariana at Jackson is super upset. She's taking her business elsewhere. I thought we told her that this was the very best pricing she could get. What, did you do your math wrong or something? How could the portal possibly be giving better prices than me, a direct seller, to a customer like this?" Tom, he's been frustrated before. It's a smile on the picture, but he's not smiling right now, right? He says, "Hey, Tom, we've been dealing with this fallout for weeks. A couple weeks ago, our online channel manager put a promotion in place that says we're going to match competitors with a sale. And this has been impacting even our best contracted prices in the marketplace." So they're both really upset. This is kind of a double whammy in this situation. So, right, at best, they're being called incompetent, right? They couldn't keep up with each other's pricing. At worst, they're being called dishonest, liars, and cheats. This is a bad deal, right? But does the story end here? Is this the end of the story? Of course, it's not the end of the story, right? These guys are much more serious, right? These are not the happy pricers. You got Mark, who's at Klein Distribution, and you got Jerome, who's the direct channel manager for the printer company direct. And Mark comes to Jerome and says, "Jerome, what's up with our pricing? Your prices are putting me out of business. My team just let me know that you took Jackson direct." Jerome says, "What? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Mark. As far as I know, you have the best pricing of any distributor out there. Let me double check on this." Because he just doesn't know. It's siloed, right? So he goes back, he double checks. He says, "I was able to confirm that you do have the very best pricing of any distributor. What in the world's going on your end? Are you experiencing any service issues that Jackson might want to take their business direct for?" And of course, Mark, the service issues, direct. And I thought we were partners. This is not the first time this has happened to me. There's chunks of my business that you're now taking direct. Something's going on. I seriously am considering taking my business exclusively with one of your competitors." Right? So this is like the double whammy, the extra bad, the bad that's happening. So, these are illustrative and it's a little dramatized, but this is real. These are conversations that I know a lot of you have had. And it's because of this transparency, right? It's because of this new transparency that's happening. In this case, right, this was a procurement agent that knew a couple people that was able to do something and had some discussions. But in a world when prices are out there and changing at a dynamic rate, this becomes a real issue that is absolutely worth your investment to solve.
Who knew that pricing could be so dramatic? So, what have we learned today? We've learned that more channels drives important amounts of loyalty and greater spend, but it also increases that price transparency. And greater price transparency can lead to pricing wars. So there's lots of benefits, but lots of potential challenges in maximizing your channel throughput there. And then Charles just walked us through a really important story, a really emotional story about how missteps in pricing can really risk your brand, your credibility, your personal relationships potentially as well. So what's the solution? What can you do? How can you maximize this throughput through these new options for channels while managing that risk? Well, companies who have invested in purpose-built enterprise pricing solutions have actually been able to take advantage of this new complexity in this omni-channel era. We heard Jim Collins earlier talking about this flywheel of getting your strategy, getting the right consistent actions going, but you can accelerate that with technology like PROS, like a purpose-built enterprise-grade solution. And what does that solution look like? Well, from a pricing perspective, it's your enterprise control center. It's really important that you have that awareness, that visibility into what's going on with your pricing from a global, holistic standpoint. You want that aggregate level all the way down to that customer product level, so you can see all those intersections, so that you can see the pricing from the buyer's perspective, and you don't get caught in a trap like our friends at Klein Distribution did there. And then we've got the tools that enable you to make strategic planning decisions. Now that you have visibility into the data, you can see where pricing's going wrong, you can adjust, but you can also proactively plan, because we know that this market is changing. It's changing faster and faster, and we need to be considerate of how to manage in response to those changes. And what's great about this system is that you've heard some discussions about our real-time dynamic pricing capabilities now that enable you to dynamically calculate those prices, serving customers like Greyhound, where they no longer have to manage price lists. They're actually able to take those inputs and calculate in real time the responsive prices that make sense for every unique buying interaction. And all of this is really important because when you bring it all together, it gives you harmonization for the prices that you put out there into that omni-channel marketplace. And we've seen success in delivery of this solution at multiple customers. But I'll tell you that McKesson Medical Surgical actually came to us 6 years ago with this problem of omni-channel. They saw their customers shifting to online portals, and they wanted to get ahead of that shift and have a strategy for enabling those customers through that low-cost ordering system. It helped them from an efficiency standpoint, but it also helped them from a profit and revenue standpoint as well. And what they're doing there is that they've got that enterprise solution that helps them to deliver the segmentation-based prices across 2.5 billion customer item price combinations. And they've got that guidance that's delivered to their sales reps. So they've got that guidance right there in that third box on the left there. And so the sales reps can see that nice price envelope. They have the range in which they can choose to go up or down, perhaps somewhere between target and expert pricing. And then whenever the customers begin to order off of those prices or off of those contracts, the system is aware of that contracted or previously ordered price, and it publishes that price to the online ordering platform that's cognizant of that buyer. And so every time they come back to order, they get to order off of that previously purchased price. But what happens when they've got a price that they haven't negotiated with a sales rep previously? Well, they actually can use the target price from that price guidance envelope. So it's a nice holistic solution for this problem of managing pricing across an omni-channel environment here. So it's really important for them to be able to have a consistent approach to be able to provide that pricing discipline so that they can maximize their profit and revenue here. And they were able to generate millions in gross profit through this solution. And if you'd like to see more about this solution, we invite you to the Modern Commerce Innovation Center, where we're showcasing both guidance and control. And we'd love to show you what we can do for you from an omni-channel pricing perspective. And at this time, I think we can open it up to questions. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, on the app, when you go to the session, there is an option to ask a question, and when you ask that question, I'll get it here through the app. And so, Charles, there's one question for you, if you'd like. So when it comes to omni-channel pricing, is it just about ensuring that you have the lowest price?
It's a softball, right? So no. I think when it comes to omni-channel pricing, one of the things that you have to consider is not just what's the right price for the product, but when you're talking about the transparency now that your customer's experience is going to have, is what are those service delivery items that are affecting that price, that eventual pricing as well, and what is the value of that being delivered to your customer? So when you as a manufacturer need to, one, be aware of how that experience is happening at the end customer level. But I think, too, more importantly, you have to do the diligence to invest in what is that value worth? What is the financing worth? What is the delivery worth? What is getting it delivered digitally versus through the next day air, through you going to the bookstore and picking it up? There's a value associated with those. And what's important for, I think, us as pricers to understand is it's easy to say, on average, the value is X. Or on average, the value is Y. But you as pricers understand that the true benefit is when you go in and break the average and understand true behavior and true value for segments at a low enough level where you're really articulating and speaking to their behavior. So that's the overall challenge, is finding the value at that end customer level and understanding your customers and how they behave and what's that's worth, and then making your prices reflect that. It's just not going to be a race to the bottom as long as you understand that, no matter how dynamic the marketplace is.